Saints 20, Falcons 17 is New Orleans on the right path. Darren Rizzi, ladies and gentlemen, the backdrop today. Matt Moscona, after further review, and now I'm going to react like only I do. Didn't mean to rhyme there, or did I? Here we go.
The winner in his head coaching debut. You know what's so interesting about that game? That game was effectively an about face from everything the Saints were for the first part of this season.
I don't know about that. I saw a lot of similarities.
I mean, under Dennis Allen, and I'm not trying to sit here and tap dance on his grave or speak ill of the dead, figuratively. Dennis Allen's very much alive. I just mean in a coaching parlance.
R.I.P.
Dennis Allen found Dennis Allen's Saints found creative ways to lose games. Just look at the last time they played the Falcons. They did not allow an offensive touchdown and lost the game. I mean, we were going through all the numbers of like the historical perspective around the Saints. Like the last game he coached, it was the third time in NFL history that a team had outgained their opponent by 100.
First time ever. 275-0 before the Saints lost the game for an offense or a team to have the game state that the Saints had against the Panthers and lose. Look, real quick, let me just really hesitate. Let me implore you to hesitate when it comes to this kind of, this is the new Saints, right? Dennis Allen was a loser. The team found ways to lose, whatever. But against the Falcons this week, we didn't do that. Change things around. I would argue we didn't change nothing around. I would argue that the Falcons lost this game. And all of these plays that we're talking about that, before you find ways to lose, the Saints found every way to lose this game. Whether it was Alvin Kamara's drop pass, whether it was Taysom Hill on 4th and 2, whether it was the decision on 4th and 1 on your own 47 to punt, any of that is you're finding ways to lose. Whether it's Derek Carr's intentional grounding, whether it's Alvin Kamara having 3.3 yards a carry, any of that. So I think it's kind of off whenever you use this game as an example of better execution or high leverage success or whatever. If you're going to point to this game is a great example of the randomness that is the NFL. The difference in this game was a bunch of missed field goals, strip sack, interception. Those are the differences. That is it. Like, that's really kind of it. And as long as this game is played with an oblong ball that bounces around randomly, there will be some of that kind of variability in these games. Same thing against the Eagles. Same thing against the Falcons. Come down to a couple crazy plays. We didn't get the benefit of, in the first Falcons game, 58-yard field goal was made. Philadelphia, we had a couple players fall down on a 3rd and 16. There you go. Right? So how much of this can you put on Darren Rizzi for missed field goals and things kind of working out? I would say kind of the same that you can put on Dennis Allen for Rashid Shaheed muffing a punt at the 1 or a fluke pick 6 that happened in the same game. Sometimes there isn't, sometimes things aren't binary of, this is a success in a high leverage situation. This is a failure. It's just some kind of randomness. And against the Falcons, you can say we got lucky. You can say we got fortunate. You can say the ball bounced our way, whatever. But that's how it played out.
50 outrushed their opponent by 100, scored at least whatever it was, and lost. I mean, it was historical perspective on the creative ways they kept losing, because that's what losing teams do. When push comes to shove in the NFL, where every game is competitive, and the old adage is any given Sunday, and anyone truly can beat anyone. The Panthers have now won 2 in a row, by the way.
Panthers, a great example. Have the Panthers discovered a culture of winning? Have the Giants found a culture of losing? The Giants-Panthers game, I don't know if you got up early to watch that disaster. They go to overtime. Giants win the coin toss. Giants get the ball. First play, Tyrone Tracy fumbles. Panthers recover. Kick a field goal, game's over. So Who exactly is that on? Is that Brian Daboll not having a culture of winning? Is that on Daniel Jones not being a winning quarterback? Because you're going to hear a lot of that. You'll hear like Daniel Jones isn't a winner, so they lost in overtime. So he didn't even touch the ball. He handed the ball off to Tracy, fumbled, boom, that's it. Is it on him? Is it on Tracy? Or is it just kind of a random thing that happens in the entirety of a game?
Anyone can beat anyone. How you make plays in critical moments determines if you win games. And look at what happened. On Sunday against Atlanta, you were outplayed in almost every single facet of that football game.
Yeah.
The Atlanta Falcons outgained you by more than 100 yards. The Atlanta Falcons nearly doubled your rushing total. The Atlanta Falcons won time of possession by nearly 11 minutes. But when you needed it, you came up with the plays. It was amazing to see. Tyrann Mathieu's interception in the fourth quarter to stamp out an Atlanta drive that was potentially going to tie or win. Of course, at the end, even after Alvin Kamara drops what would have been a walk-in touchdown that would have iced the game, and we're all thinking the same thing. We're all thinking the same thing. Man, that was your chance to put it away. Now Kirk Cousins is going back out there. You've got this makeshift secondary after you trade Lattimore. You're out there with no Paulson Adebo. We're literally debating the impact of not having Rico Payton this week. And that's how you had Ugo Amadi playing in the slot. And what happens? Chase Young goes and gets a strip sack fumble. Game over. Awesome. You made the plays when you had to have it. Blocked field goal right before the end of the half. I mean, those were the things that helped you win this game. There were the types of plays that evaded you under Dennis Allen. And yeah, I do think Darren Rizzi plays a big role in that. The attention to detail, the emotion your team plays with. When the New Orleans Saints get the blocked field goal at the end of the first half, and they pan to Darren Rizzi, and he looks like he's about to have a friggin' aneurysm. He's like so clenched up and fired up, all the blood's rushing to his face. The memes on social media have been awesome about that, by the way. But yeah, it's very evident these players were excited to play that game and to play for Darren Rizzi. Listen to Alvin Kamara after the game.
I mean, there's no doubt. There's no doubt in my mind that they were excited to play. There's no doubt in my mind that Rizzi did provide some kind of, excitement or motivation or whatever. But I don't know if you can quantify that and say that is the reason for an interception or a missed field goal or whatever. I don't know. I mean, you got to kind of, I think a better way to look at long-term success is, are you doing the right things a majority of the time and stacking up the execution or the good plays or positive plays or whatever? Are you stacking that up enough to where eventually you kind of break through and then, that's kind of what the Ravens do. The Ravens just stack up success on a micro level, like on a play-by-play basis. They stack it up enough to where eventually they just kind of get through, and then eventually, they score points and they control the game, and you know the rest, right? That's what I want to see from the Saints. Whether it's this version of the Saints or the next version of the Saints or whatever, I want to see enough of those micro successes to where it's a consistent, long-term vision for winning. That's what I want. I don't want to rely on a handful of missed field goals or, like this game right here. This game right here, I still have a ton of question marks. I still have a ton of, why aren't we executing when we have to? Why aren't we catching, is that just a random drop, an untimely drop from Kamara? Yeah, probably. But it does feel like it's like, man, that script, that movie certainly does happen a lot to the Saints. Why aren't we converting on 4th and 1? Why aren't we even going for it on 4th and 1 on our 47? Why are we punting with Ugo Amadi as our second best defensive back against an offense who has carved us up all day? Why aren't we trying to win the game on a 4th and 1 dive with Taysom Hill? Why are we allowing 100 and however many yards to Bijan? Like those micro successes, that's what I want to fix. I want to fix having Darnell Mooney and Drake London both almost having 100 yards through the air. I want to fix Atlanta having 11 more minutes of time in possession. So don't get so wrapped up in those high leverage moments that are basically a coin toss. Focus more on how can we fix the same problems that has happened week in and week out. Giving up a ton of yards on the ground. And giving up, the receiver thing, you trade Lattimore, Kool-Aid's out. Like that's a little bit more explainable. But that's what I want Rizzy to fix. That's what I want to see in this new culture with the New Orleans Saints.
Game. He talked about it. He was like, yeah, it felt different. Like we were playing with a different energy this week.
It was energy. It was a belief. We got some swag back, preparation, details, fundamentals. Everybody was accountable to each other, and we haven't had that. It hasn't been there. Like I've been saying these past couple of weeks, we all want to win. The recipe it was just missing something, and I feel like we got that thing. Rizzy came in and he had a clear message for us. He told us man, this is what we have to do to win. He gave us the recipe, gave us the formula. Everybody bought in throughout the week.
Again, I don't think this is the recipe. I'm not so sure that this is the recipe. If this is the recipe, we might be in some trouble. I can't imagine Darren Rizzi came out here and was like, all right, guys, I've got it figured out. Here's what we're going to do. I got it figured out, fellas. Our recipe to success looks like this. It's just hard for me to believe that. So winning covers up a whole hell of a lot. I'll tell you that. Winning covers up a ton. But we are going to have to be way better if this is the game plan. If this is what the preparation leads to. My voice is still gone. My voice is still absolutely gone from the game. I was giving it my all. The voice is absolutely strained from the Superdome. But it's just a funny thing when you look at this and then you hear yep, this is what we can do. This is what we can do, baby. There's almost 500 yards given up. Almost 500 yards. I don't know. I had some hesitation, ladies and gentlemen.
Everybody did what they had to do. It's your 111. It's about doing your job on every play, And there's still a lot of things we left out on the field, and we got to clean up, starting with me, that drop that I'm mad about still. But we won. But, I think unity was a word, one of the words of the week. And, when you're united, you all believe, and you're all together, there's so much you can do.
That's just a different feel, man. That's why you had to make this change. And I know... Let me not get ahead of myself. Let me talk about the game, and then we'll talk about that. But
let me go first, Matt. I do agree Allen needed to go. I do agree Allen it wasn't working, and there is something to the toxicity or the culture or whatever that needs to change. That is for sure. I'm not saying that that's not a thing. What I'm saying is that that's all fine and dandy, but if we want long-term success. What we just saw in that box score ain't it. Long-term success isn't giving up 500 yards. Long-term success is not giving up two receivers basically to have 100 yards receiving. Long-term success is not giving up or not relying on multiple missed field goals and whatever else. We got to be better. How many points did we score in the second half? 3? 3. Scored 3 points in the second half. That ain't going to be it. That isn't good enough. We scored a touchdown in one quarter. Like, this is one of those games where if Alvin's drop leads to a loss, there is a whole lot we can point to of this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. But right now, you can erase all that because of the W. And I'm cautioning now that this team still needs to get better at a whole lot of things.
What Alvin's saying there is why you had to make the change. You lost 7 in a row. No one in that locker room believed in Dennis Allen. They believed in Darren Rizzi.
Yeah.
They believed in what he was saying. They
That's
believed
true.
in the energy he was bringing,
All
the vibe,
true.
the emotion.
Almost just bit my tongue.
And they went out and played their ass off, and they made plays late, and they won.
I'm fighting through it.
I don't think it's going to dramatically change this season for the Saints.
Yeah.
But that was awesome to see. A couple things about the game. Then I'll go big picture, because I know people are looking at it going, man, why'd you have to win, man, the draft? I'll get to that in a second. Number one, I loved seeing the fire from Rizzy. I tweeted at one point during the game, like, there was a penalty called where Darren Rizzy went and got all up in the ref's face. I said, that was the first time that I'd seen a Saints coach get all in a ref's behind in 3 years. Dennis Allen was so passive on the sideline. And here you had a guy going to bat for his team. Even going for it on that 4th down early in the game, which I hated, by the way, take the points. But anyway, even the guys said afterwards, it showed a belief in him. It was just a different energy. Blame where it's deserved, credit where it's due. How about Trevor Penning?
I definitely think you have to go for it there. Like, taking the points is not the move.
Every Monday, Ross Jackson over at LouisianaSports.net does a Pro Football Focus grade piece. And one of the things he highlighted, the highest graded player for the New Orleans Saints in the game against the Falcons, the highest graded player was Trevor Penning.
I have a sneaky feeling that, and nothing against Trevor Penning, but I have a sneaky feeling that if you looked at offensive linemen who play against the Falcons, I would assume they grade very highly because the Falcons' pass rush is so bad. So bad. I would assume that on average, like if your opposition is the Falcons, you have a pretty strong offensive line grade.
92.7. 5 pressures, just 1 of 5 pressures surrendered by the Saints came from Penning.
Carr wasn't sacked.
His pressure rate is about half of what it was a year ago when he was left tackle. 1 pressure on 27 snaps as a pass blocker on Sunday. Also graded highly in the run game. He was the highest. It was his highest run blocker grade of his career at 94.7. Again, blame when warranted, credit where it's due. Really good day for Trevor Penning.
No doubt.
Alvin Kamara, 109 scrimmage yards for Kamara. Was good in the run game, had over 50 receiving yards as well. He did have a chance for an even bigger
good in the run game. He averaged 3 yards a carry.
Day, but dropped the deep pass at the end, and even talked about that after the game. It was a funny comment, actually.
Man, it was just up there, man. It was one of them easy ones. That was like, I went to the sideline and I told Coach Dub, I was like, that was like the lamest thing I've ever done in my life, playing football. But it hurt me because I could have iced it. It would have been, that would have been good. That would have been good. But we still won, so I'm good. It is what it is.
We can laugh about it because they won. If they had lost, I don't think we'd been laughing.
No.
Cam Jordan got a sack, which was nice to see. It took 10 weeks for Cam Jordan to get his first sack of the year. By the way, Cam is now at 118 and a half sacks for his career. This is relevant because the threshold for the Hall of Fame, this isn't necessarily something that people talk about openly, like 300 wins for a pitcher, or 500 homers, 3,000 hits have always been those benchmarks in baseball. But every player in the NFL that's gotten to 125 sacks has gotten into the Hall of Fame. So Cam Jordan right now is at 118 and a half. So he's still 6.5 sacks away from that sort of magical threshold.
I think Cam's a Hall of Famer.
It's hard to imagine him getting there unless he gets things in gear a good bit, but he's close. A lot of people I know are looking and bummed that the Saints won because they're looking forward to the draft. I'll tell you this.
That is and I'll say this, every video we do where this gets brought up, that is the craziest line of thinking of all time. And it is some insane Madden fantasy football mindset to think that these players are going to try and lose for a draft pick. Like, it's just absolutely insane. Absolutely crazy.
I am never going to be upset about beating Atlanta. I mean, the only scenario you could ever present to me is if the Saints are 0-16, they're playing a Week 18 game against Atlanta, there's another winless team or a one-win team in the NFL, and you got to lose it to get the first pick, and there's like a transcendent quarterback there. That might be the only time.
Yeah, like a Trevor Lawrence. Yeah, like a Justin Fields or a Zach Wilson or Jamarcus Russell, Yeah, no doubt about it. Like, can't miss kind of guys. 100%, yeah. And you get someone like that, you get an absolute can't miss stud, a Sam Bradford, someone like that. Yeah, tank the whole season, do whatever you got to do, trade it all away, go get that guy for sure.
Time I'd ever.
Matt Leinart, Vince Young, yeah, these can't miss kind of guys that no doubt about it. Guys that no doubt you get them, you bring them in there, your franchise is being changed. Yeah, Blaine Gabbert, Blake Bortles kind of guy. Yeah, Trey Lance. No doubt. Mac Jones. All these guys. Any of these first-round quarterbacks we've seen, you do what you got to do to make sure that you're in a position to take them. 100%. Or even a running back, I mean, think about some of the top 5 running backs who you just got to get. The Cedric Bensons of the world, and the Ronnie Browns, Reggie Bush even. No doubt about it. You do not want to fall out of that top 10. You do not want to fall back and take a quarterback in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th round. Do not want, like a Russell Wilson. You do not want like a Brock Purdy. You do not want, even at the end of the 1st round, you don't want like a Lamar Jackson. You got to make sure, sell the farm, lose every game you can, so you can be in position to take a Mitchell Trubisky. I agree with that.
Never be like, all right, you can lose it. You get a chance to beat Atlanta, I'm with it. Always. And a 7 consecutive losses, eventually you got to turn that thing around and get some good vibes and good mojo.
Yes.
Listen, you've got plenty of losses ahead in this season because the reality is this still isn't a great team. You're still down your top 2 receivers. You're still old on defense. You've still got Derek Carr as your quarterback, who is mid at best, like we've talked about. Like, all those things are still true.
Yeah.
You still have all the flaws you did a week ago when you fired Dennis Allen. You're going to play.
You played worse. Like, it's a different competition, level of competition. But the Saints played worse in this game than they did against Carolina. That's just a fact. The Saints played worse in this game than they did the first time they played Atlanta. Again, that's a fact. So it's just it's a funny microcosm of how you can look at a game, which is why we dig into so much of the analytics and the stats and the box scores. Because if you take this game and you take the other Atlanta game, yes, obviously you want the result of this one. But you don't necessarily want the performance of this one. I would much rather the performance against Carolina, but not the result, right? You do not want to give up 500 yards. You do not want to not score in the second half. You do not want to not score in the first quarter. Like, there's a lot. You do not want 3.3 yards a carry against a horrific run defense with, your best player. You do not want those things. So it's a funny game to recap for sure. Love the win. Couldn't be more happy about the win. Jubilation, celebration, all that stuff. Well deserved. But if you're looking at this on a breakdown, long-term kind of thing, this is not an example of turning the page. This is not an example of Rizzy fixing things. This is not an example of, okay, the team has got rid of Allen, and now they're doing things right. Not the case.
Play with a little more energy, a little more give a damn, a little more passion. But you still got a handful of games that it's hard to imagine the Saints winning the rest of the way. Like, I think they can win this week against Cleveland. And then
there's like, I mean, you can beat Cleveland, Giants, Raiders, Tampa at the end of the season. You never know how that's going to play out. The Rams are beatable, I guess, but the Rams are definitely better. But you're at home. Get the Ram. I mean, so there's like five-ish games, and that's not even counting for like an upset. That's not even counting for, something happening that you don't expect to happen, a Green Bay or a Washington or whatever. But I think the season ends somewhere around 7 or 8 wins, and I hope it's 8 because of my over 7.5 season win total bet. But yeah, I would say 8 wins is probably where you're headed. So I think the team is too good to tank necessarily, but it's not like they're, I would be stunned. I'd be stunned if we lost more than 7 games, and I'd be stunned if we won more than 8 games. So somewhere in there.
You go into your bye. I think you can win at the Giants because they're terrible.
Yeah, they're horrible.
And I think you can beat the Raiders in New Orleans.
Yeah, they're horrible.
Outside of those 3, I'm not sure you favor the Saints anywhere else. I don't know that they beat the Rams. Hard to pick them against the Commanders. And Tampa lost again. I mean, they're only a game ahead of New Orleans, but I think they're playing much better than their record shows. And I don't think you're winning at Green Bay. So 6-11 feels about right. But I mean, that's the record I picked them before the season. It feels about right. And that should put you lingering somewhere in the top 10 of the draft. And it's going to put you in position, hopefully, to draft a franchise quarterback or move up to draft your franchise quarterback. And we'll see what ultimately they do. By the way, I'm not completely sold the Saints are going to draft a quarterback, even though I would love for them to do it. I've been pounding the table about that forever. They've done it once in their history in the first round. So until they do it again, I don't know that we project them to do it. But if you're out here moaning about the Saints beating the Atlanta Falcons because of draft position, you need to check yourself.
100%.
You want to win in the NFL. The best case scenario is the Saints get hot, make a run, and go 10-7. I don't think that's going to happen, but you let the chips fall where they may for the draft.
I mean, Patrick Mahomes was taken, you do not have to be 1, 2, or 3 to get your guy. And the Saints are bad roster-wise. They're bad built. So if the Saints get any kind of all-pro, if the Saints nail a draft pick, I don't care what position it is right now. The Saints have to get better. We're not in a situation where it's like you got to hit a quarterback and you can only hit a quarterback in the top 4. That's not the case. That's a crazy line of thinking.
When that happens, but keep going, playing better, getting some young guys, some experience, some confidence. Trevor Penning playing better, Bryan Brzee on the interior, things like that. Alontae Taylor out wide to see if he can be a franchise corner for you. And if you win some games along the way, even better. And even better still if it's against Atlanta.
Trivia. He mentioned Bryan Brzee. How would you say Bryan Brzee has played so far this season? This is the defensive interior run defense and pass rush, PFF grades, vertical pass rush, horizontal run defense. How do you think Brzee has played? What would you say? Been pretty good? How about this? By far, the worst in defensive line, defender performance, however you want to phrase it, in the NFL weeks 1 through 8. By far. Horrible against the run and real bad against the pass. So again, we need these players to play better. I don't care who the coach is. All right, ladies and gentlemen, get on down in the comments below. Let me know what you think. I will see you in the next video.